introduce myself, you struggle with my last name. I'm John Ogrodniczuk. I'm a professor in UBC psychiatry here. Tim tells a great story, a fantastic story. I feel a bit reluctant trying to follow up with him because I don't have a cool story to tell. However, there's a lot of parallels that you can draw from Tim's story about being in the military, transitioning back to civilianhood and so forth. Issues like dealing with hyper-masculinity, pushing yourself to succeed, being coerced sometimes to get help. These are all things that I think can resonate with a lot of us that are in the civilian world. Now, there's a lot of different issues that we can talk about men's mental health. You know, there's three issues primarily that occupy the conversation. You know, how do men express emotional strife? What are the issues that seem particularly salient among men? And the issue of help seeking and help services for men. So I won't go into all of that, but what I would like to talk a little bit about and draw you into a conversation rather than hear me talk a lot about it is regarding the issue of what types of issues or problems seem to be particularly salient among men. Now, in that kind of context, a lot of the problems that men come to see me with revolve around their conscription to masculine norms. That is, how much they buy into sort of the gendered expectations of what it means to be a man. So I'll give you an example. A lot of men have their sense of self wrapped around ideas of success. So career achievements, how much money they make, the kinds of things they provide for their family. If they can do all of this really well, then they're successful and they're a good man. The fact of the matter is they often set the bar so high it's impossible to achieve. And for many of them, that leads to this tremendous sense of failure. Failure that they've not competed well against other men who may be richer, who have more stuff. And also failure in that they haven't provided their family with what they think their family expects of them. And this can really lead to a sense of, I'm not good enough. They withdraw. They start feeling depressed, what we normally think of depression. But for men, depression obviously doesn't start in that way. They're often angry fellows, irritable, hostile, aggressive. Those are kind of the early warning signs of depression amongst men. And if it's not recognized and treated, then it can kind of morph into what we more traditionally recognize as depression. Now, if I draw it back to what might resonate with you a little bit more, a lot of the men that I see from the UBC community, there's some issues that come up over and over again. One of them is early career pressures, expectations of performance when you're just starting out at UBC. That tends to lead to conflicts between family and career. This is a big one. Often there's just starting a family or just starting a relationship with a partner at the same time that they have these immense expectations to perform at work. It can often lead to substance abuse. Men, whether we recognize it or not in ourselves, we tend to turn to kind of escaping behaviors to do with our shit. It's sex, drug abuse, substance abuse. Not abuse to begin with, but these are the kinds of things that we kind of occupy ourselves with, but we kind of forget about the stuff we got going on. Now, when men come in, they rarely will talk about feeling down, sad, or depressed. Often they won't mention any kind of emotional or behavioral problems at all. I'll give you a little anecdote. The little study that we did involving about 100 men at a family practice clinic here at UBC, we asked men right in the waiting room to fill out some forms around emotional and behavioral difficulties. And then we asked the family physician if these men brought up any issues around emotional behavioral problems that they might have. And about 20% of the men who filled out the report scored quite high in emotional and behavioral difficulties, and about 4% actually said something to the GP. And there were about 5% of the men, when filling out these forms, circled the single item regarding I am currently having difficulties with thoughts of killing myself. About 5% circled this. Not one actually brought that up with their GP, even after having been primed to do so. So that shows you how difficult it is for men to bring issues forward. Now, if they do bring issues forward, it's often around stress. I'm having stress at work, stress related to sex and relationships. And they act out their stress, as I mentioned before, with substance uses, risk-taking behaviors, escaping behaviors. And even then, if they bring up issues around stress, so they might recognize a problem, they might acknowledge help for a problem. Do these men often look for that help that they say, yeah, I guess I need some help? Often the answer is no. So that brings us to this issue of getting men the help that they need. What sorts of help services are men willing to access? What sorts of help services might be effective for men? Right now we don't know. I have my own little side gig on the side that I try to help men with. I don't call it counseling, I don't call it therapy, I call it consulting. It seems to be less offensive to men than those other terms. So I consult them. That's okay. Consulting's normal. I have a financial consultant, a business consultant, and so they just say I'm going to see my consultant. So it could be a simple issue of semantics, really, but it's about what appeals to them. What do they feel comfortable accessing? So I'm really glad to see everyone here to show, showing there's receptivity to talking about it. And I'd be very curious to hear what people have to say about these kinds of issues.